My name is Yanni Adoni, and I will present a paper on the characterization of aluminum T-joints made by corner station shoulder friction stir welding, together with my colleagues Valeria Mertinger from Miskolc Egyetem in northeastern Hungary and Balázs Barbai from the Budapest University of Technology and Economics. We were latecomers to this project. I represent University West in this particular project. But the main author is actually Jeroen de Bakker from TWI, who you will see did some excellent work in this long-term project. We are latecomers here from Hungary, even though I'd spent 35 years in America. Is that this is toward the end of a big project called Oasis. There was actually I think we joined in the last 6 months with some analysis. This project, 1.6 million euros, started 2.5 years ago under Saab Aero leadership in Sweden and TWI project management. But you can see here ISAB representing Sweden together with University West. VSLU is an excellent laboratory in Prague, the Czech Republic. Roma Aero is an engineering firm in Romania who helped with the fixturing. VSLU did most mechanical testing. Queen's University in Belfast in the Northern Ireland did some modeling work. So it was a pretty extensive project, all aimed at eliminating rivets from airplanes, something that we've been trying to do for 20 years as a community since the times of Eclipse, you might remember. So the approach was to weld from the inside, not from the outside. And using a new friction stir fillet weld, again, this is a different process. I think in my life I've seen 99% of the papers all written on butt welding and lap welding, but this is fillet welding. And not only that, but it's about the similar alloy, so it makes it very, very interesting. The process is being trademarked by TWI as corner stir process. I talk about it. A second interesting thing about this was that there are dissimilar materials, very interesting naturally aging alloy 7050, and which is aluminum, zinc, copper, and a regular duraluminum, aluminum 2024 T3 copper alloy. And that represents the skin. The 7050 represents the reinforcements in the inside of the airplane. Again, this was complementing previous mechanical tests I will show you later. But amazingly high welded joint efficiency, sometimes up to 95% were measured. You will see that the adequate corrosion resistance and good fatigue performance complemented this. So it was a very successful project. So when we joined, we learned that the process is shown on the left here means that the shoulder is stationary, so it doesn't move, only the pin moves. Well, actually it's called a probe because it's rather large, so sometimes 5 millimeter in diameter here at the tip, and it's rotating in this case counterclockwise, bringing the advancing side from the in this case part 1 is 7050 toward the 2024 side, which is the skin. The geometry, which tries to replace rivets and kind of a rude representation of rivets. By the way, the project was looking at Airbus 320 aircraft cargo doors. You will see that actually the demonstrators were welded using this process. Overall in the airplane there are 500,000 rivets, or fasteners as they pronounce it in England. But they basically add about 2 metric tons to the weight of an airplane, which is only 1% of its weight, yet it's, I would say, 500,000 holes is really the problem with fasteners. And we all know about Aloha airline accidents and others where the skin fatigued and broke and the stewardess was sucked up and died in the process. So we wanted to replace fasteners from airplanes a long time ago. So interesting, going back to the process, is that the joint preparation is quite unique. The 7050 part is prepared in an elephant foot configuration. There's no filler wire being brought in, so in order to avoid undercutting, there's this particular geometry has to be pushed down really hard with a fixture, and the aircraft skin is actually thickened a little bit in the area where the ribs come in. Yet it's still only 2.8 millimeters in this area. So you see some fillet welds here. You will see actually how does this look like in a traditional. This is a picture. This is generic picture showing the two passes, one from the right, one from the left. You see beautiful uniformity, minimal heat affected zone, and this whole geometry changes tremendously with probe design. The RPMs are pretty high, by the way, 4,000 RPMs with the probe tilt. But again, the shoulder amazingly only maintains the shape. It's only pushing down. The downforce is fairly high, actually, 7,000 Newton. The tilt angle of the torch is important. Speed is important, fit up is important. We're doing on the project right now, for instance, on lap joints, dissimilar joints, we're doing 4 meters a minute. 4 meters a minute. TWI already accomplished 6 meters a minute in that. So it is an amazing process. So how is this setup? You can see here a setup. You can see the robot and the fixture, which presents it to the robot, and then the 2 meter by 3 meter door actually welded. This demonstrator door is at saw barrow as we speak. This is a very hot project. It's still going on with different door designs, composites, and other different designs. This is the friction stir welded one. We're very proud of it because it also contains other reinforcements made at TWI by refill friction stir spot weld, another novelty in this business, incredibly efficient. So I don't work for TWI, but I am a big fan of theirs and of the innovation, and I'm very proud to be associated with them at this point. So in this case, you can see that the probe was basically a cobalt nickel superalloy rotating at about 3,000 RPM, 6,000 Newton. This is relatively slowly welded, although could have gone faster, but according to TWI, this probe actually had a life of over 500 meters without any breakage or cracking or anything. So very impressive indeed. So what did we do from this point on? For some reason my presentation locked. So here is the first cross section we did with, obviously we did calories etch. We did not get too much out of it. So we applied a fairly well-known etching technique called Barker's. It's an electrolytic etch which comes off with very spectacular results. You can see the composition here. Tetrafluoroboric acid and under 25, about 30 volts and for 90 seconds. And then you can use different filters to take very beautiful pictures of this. You can see that the stir zone has very interesting appearance, yet it has very uniform hardness, about 147 Vickers. The two heat effector zones are softer, about 125 on the 7050 side relative to the 150 base metal, and here's some heat affected zone, also some weakening there, 135 Vickers, but that's tremendously less than you would expect in the laser weld, fusion weld, or anything. Very beautiful pictures. And we continued this evaluation by forcing this weld to break. I'll show you some regular tests. This is kind of non-traditional testing. We wanted to see whether we can break the weld in the area, in the heat affected zone. And we were able to actually bend it and break it right there, very close to the heat affected zone, and found that, lo and behold, coarsened grain. So this seems to be the weakened area, the weakest area, yet you will see from the regular testing that this so-called weakness is only about 15% of the strength of the base metal from static testing. Very good joint efficiency. Started 85-90%, and you will see later that we reached almost 95% joint efficiency There's some precipitates there coalesced in the middle of the grains, but most of them actually are precipitate free because we believe they all dissolved. We are in the process of doing some TM work, but most of them dissolved. And we actually, based on this thing, we wanted to re-precipitate them by using an artificial aging process. But bottom line is that this is a ductile brittle combination mixed mode failure initiated at coarse grain heat affected zone. So the large grains are the problem, obviously. So when we looked at the scanning electron microscopy, the EDS picture, we found something very interesting, that in the area which actually is zinc rich, coming from the aluminum 7050 side, we have extremely fine precipitates. We barely see them here, while the aluminum copper precipitates have almost dissolved in this heat affected zone. So that brought us to the conclusion that we should not wait 6 months to a year. Remember, this is a naturally aging alloy. 7050 is. Aluminum 2024 isn't, but you probably don't want to normally post what heat treat. So we said, hey, why don't we use a low temperature, kind of baking it at 163 degrees for 4 hours, and you see that properties actually improved by aging. This is one test. There were several other tests run. This is the pull-out test in the 7050 side. You can see that the joint has fairly good strength, ultimate tensile in megapascal relative to the two base metals. 7050 was 534 and 2024 was 442. So when we did more weld the structures and did some post-weld heat treatment, notice that from 460 the strength increased by about 5% to 488, especially with this particular treatment that would not cause any problems to the structure. Laser welding, by the way, was clearly not a winner, not to call it a loser, but you can see typically fusion welding causes tremendous loss in strength, like TIG welding and others. We know all about that. But you can see that this friction stir weld has tremendous strength and extremely good quality. So now we looked at wax etchant. It's another electrolytic etchant which reveals precipitates and oxides. Notice that the grains are not revealed here, or flow lines, like in the Barker's etching, but it just incredibly resembles the EDS mapping. So you can see that wax is almost identical. The zinc-rich region from the 7050 side reached down into the 2024 like the roots of a tree. Fascinating comparison. So let's say if you don't have an SEM, use wax etchant. So this is, again, not calories. Calories is the standard. It's not going to give you too much. I'm not talking down calories, but I'm just showing some alternatives to calories. So this is called wax etching. Very, very beautiful, and it's interesting. And now I come to the most fascinating pictures, the electron beam, the backscattered diffraction from this particular structure, which happens at much more smaller scale. Most of you know that this analysis requires hours of scanning, actually scanning and collecting the diffraction pattern from the grains, hours, sometimes a day, I might say. And you can see that the grain orientation is clearly revealed in the EBSD picture, as opposed to the Barker's was very uniform. EBSD shows some orientation. No big deal. This is what you would expect from a rolled material. The most fascinating thing was this, that the EBSD in the stir zone was extremely equiax. The grains were very fine and extremely same size. That means equiax, that's another term. In spite of all the flow lines we see here, in reality, these are extremely good welds, which has very, very isotropic in all directions. That's the bottom line. Both sides of the weld show the same behavior. So basically, we looked at the Barker's, and then we look at very, very small scale. So we're talking about orders of magnitude smaller. So we're looking here at this kind of a small order of magnitude microns in range. Here we're talking about millimeters. Yet what was one interesting correlation was that the EBSD in the coarse grain heat affected zone, and you can see the stir zone and the material, it looks very, very similar to the color etchant. You can see the image quality indicator, which actually shows you how little precipitates and how little dislocations you have in those grains. Excellent pictures. So this is really the key for going forward. We thought that using this image quality indicator is a very good way to detect whether we have dislocations and precipitates within the coarse grain heat affected zone, because they interfere with the diffraction pattern. And so we concluded, by golly, these are all solutionized, let's do heat treatment. And this is really our meek contribution to the project, was that we recommended, but based on this analysis, that we do this light artificial aging process, and lo and behold, it worked. You can see, by the way, the images on the other side, on the 2024 side, in the heat affected zone, beautiful, uniform, but coarse grain. This would have been another weak area, but wasn't in this loading. Thank God it never failed in this area. This is internal, so it's very unlikely that this weld would fracture ever on the 2024 side. And so overall, we found that color metallography showed a very good correlation with EBSD, but a different scale. Yet it's much cheaper to do color metallography than EBSD. So you can save money on doing EBSD only on the areas of interest instead of just doing it at random everywhere. Then the other surprise was that wax edge showed so good correlation with compositional mapping that it's amazing. You can use it almost as a backscattered electron image map of different compositions, in this case zinc-rich and copper-rich regions. And then all these techniques gave us a more complete picture of the weld performance. Finally, we can say that we did contribute to this project by improving some, even on the fatigue life of this is the way the skin is being loaded, and you can see the base metal fatigue data here on top, with the weld in green showing obviously lower performance, but with phosphor heat treatment we can see some improvement, definitely better than fasteners or rivets. You can see from a different report they have typically much lower. They fail in a different mode, but they have lower fatigue life than these friction stir welds. So very proud to say that we did contribute some to the efficiency of this project. So in conclusion, we think that the combined use of electron and optical microscopy resulted in a good and comprehensive evaluation of this weld, and then the quick and inexpensive color metallography can save time and money. And then the analysis was definitely useful for later application of post-weld heat treatment. So that was value added. So I would like to leave you with this beautiful picture, kind of a composite of the Barkers and the EBSD, not only to highlight the aesthetics of combining these techniques, but also to show that we are proud to say that this is probably one of the best welds made for aircraft structure in a long time, and we are very proud that we could be part of it. So if you have any questions, please shoot. I really appreciate your attention. Thank you.